Hello everyone and welcome to this special tutorial. So this tutorial I have done for the soap making magazine for Design Mania. I'm super excited that I get to do a tutorial for you guys, and I hope you find this helpful and have fun making a one pot wonder gradient. So I'm Jennifer, the soap artist. If you don't know me, welcome. For those returning, thank you for following and watching my videos. Today I am going to discuss how to create a one pot wonder gradient. So the one pot wonder and the gradient are two separate techniques that I am simply going to combine. So this is a base recipe you can use. You can use any recipe, but if you don't have one, this one will work. My biggest tip for you is with whatever recipe you choose, you want to make sure that it's a slow mover. You will need time to make this batch of soap, and so you want whatever recipe, you want it to move slow. So what is a one pot wonder gradient? Well, basically we are going to create a gradient of colors and then pour them into the pot like we would do a normal one pot wonder, but we're doing this specifically to get that transition between colors. So for this tutorial we are doing a 3-color one pot wonder gradient. This is definitely more difficult than a 2-color. So I have broken down the math here for you. You don't actually have to do any of these calculations. You can basically take what I've done at the end and plug in your numbers into a template I created. But if you want to understand where the math is coming from, then you can watch this section. If you don't care, you can go ahead and skip to the part where we start making soap. So when we are creating a 3-color gradient, we obviously have 3 colors that we need to gradient from one to the next to the next. So this chart is basically laying out our color division. So we have the first layer, which is color A. The second and third are transition layers, which are going to split the difference between color A and move us to color B. And then the third layer, or third color I should say, color C, we're going to transition from color B to C. So this table is just showing you the breakdown of the colors and how we're going to move from one to the next. So to start, we need to determine the weight of each layer. That's going to help us divide our colors up equally. So how many layers do you need? For this case, we need 7, as you saw in the previous screen. What you want to do is take your total batch weight. So I am working with a 2.5 pound recipe, which is 40 ounces. Now, I recommend working with a smaller batch size, so a 2.5 or 3 pound recipe. When you start getting larger, it's much harder to get the really crisp lines and gradient between layers. It can be done, it's just harder. So I really recommend work with a smaller batch. So anyways, you're going to take your total batch weight divided by the number of layers. That's going to give you X. X is an important number to remember. So in our case, we're making a 40-ounce batch of soap. So we're going to take 40 ounces, divide that by 7, and each layer or color is going to be 5.71 ounces. So remember that number. That's the first number that we need. So when we split the colors up, we need more of color B than we do of A and C. As you can see in this chart, B transitions us between A and C. So A and C colors never mix. B is that kind of transition. You can see that color B has 9, where color A and C only have 6. So we need less soap of color A and color C and more of color B. So what does that mean? You can imagine the batch divided into 21 equal parts. 6 of those are going to be color A, 9 will be color B, and 6 will be color C. Basically what we're going to do is just convert those into percentages. So if we did 6 divided by 21, then color A and C will make up 28.57% of our batch. And color B will make up 42.86%. Now again, you don't have to do this math. These numbers are fixed. They're going to stay the same no matter what size batch you make, as long as you're doing a 3-color, 7-layer gradient. So you can just take these numbers, but I wanted to explain where they came from. Okay, so now we need to take these numbers and apply them to our 40-ounce batch. It's pretty simple. You're just going to multiply the weight of the total batch by the percentage for each color. So again, we take our 40 ounces, multiply that by 28.57%, and that gives us 11.428 ounces. So that's how much soap we will need for color A and color C. For color B, we take 40 ounces, multiply that by 42.86%, and we need 17.144 ounces. So now that we know these numbers, we can divide our batch up into the correct portions. So this chart just shows you how much of each color is in each layer. So obviously layer 1, 4, and 7 have 100% of their respective colors. Between layer 1 and layer 4, we need to transition from color A to color B. So layer 2 has 66.6% of A and 33.3% of color B. So knowing this, we can simply plug in our X, which was 5.71 ounces, multiply that by the percent, and that will give us how much color we need for each layer. So layer 1, obviously it's just color A, we need 5.71 ounces. For layer 2, we're going to pour 3.8 ounces of color A into a cup and then add 1.9 ounces of color B. And we'll just follow this chart and create 7 cups with the respective amounts of color in each one. That is going to give us a nice even gradient between the colors. So this is basically the chart with the final results. So it's just showing you how much how much soap of each color we need in each cup. And this is a visual, so you can see how we are moving from the gradient, one color to the next color to create that gradient. So, we're starting with, in this case, the blue, and then transitioning to purple, and then from purple moving into the pink. So that's the math side of setting up everything that you need to do to create this gradient. Now, you can just take the chart and plug in your numbers, but I wanted to show you how I came about all of these numbers. If you don't want to do any math, you can use my recipe and these numbers and you're good to go. So now that we've gone over all of this, thank you for sticking around. Let's jump into actually making the soap, because we all know that's the fun part. We are going to be making a gradient one pot wonder soap. So we're doing a 3-color gradient, which is a little bit more tricky than a 2-color gradient. I am going to be using this photo as my inspiration. So I'm using black, basically just activated charcoal. Then I'm using this blackish green from Just Pigments. I absolutely adore this color. And then finally, I am using from Brambleberry, it's called Light Gold Mica. So it's not quite white. It will give me a little bit more of that cream tone from this picture. So you can use a variety of colors. You just want to make sure that the 3 colors you pick work together. So red, orange, yellow, or yellow, green, blue, or blue, purple, pink. Those colors in the rainbow work really well. You can use color swatches, for example. I'm going to make one with this black, purple, and then maybe a white or maybe a light purple. I haven't decided. This is another one where you could definitely create some variations. Also, you could do it with blues. This webpage, which I will provide the link for, gives you examples of different hues and colors that work together. So this could be a color theme, and then it lets you see how if you mix this pink and that blue together, what type of gradient you would get. So it gives you an idea. Well, you could mix the black into the blue into the darker pink, and that would give you a pretty gradient. So there are lots of possibilities out there when it comes to what color scheme can you use. If you want to use 2 colors that don't work together, like say black and pink, it probably isn't going to give you the best gradient. You can always separate them by white or like a cream, a light color. Go black, white, pink, and then you will get gradients that work as well. So what will we need supply-wise? Since we are splitting this into 7 different batches, or sorry, segments, you're going to need 7 containers. So I have my 3 main containers and then 4 cups that I'll use. You'll need a bowl that will hold all of your soap, because eventually all the soap in these containers is going to go in this bowl. And then obviously your mold. I am using the Crafter's Choice 1501 mold for this tutorial. It is from Wholesale Supplies, and it holds 40 ounces of soap, so it's a 2.5 pound batch. So what we need to do is, before we start making our soap, is do some math. So the first thing you need to determine is the amount of soap your batch is going to hold. Then, because we want technically 7 layers or 7 different color divisions for our one pot wonder pour, we need to divide by 7. That's going to give you how much each layer, or how much soap basically each layer will have. From there, we need to divide our colors up into 3 segments. So color A and color C are never going to mix, and color B is going to bridge the gap between the 2. So we're going to have more of color B. So you can use this formula. You just take your total batch weight, 40, multiply it by 28.57%, and that will give you how much oil or soap we need for batch A and also batch C. Batch B will be the remainder, but if we did the math, that will give you the rest of that. Then from there, we're going to use this last part of the chart to determine how much color goes into each cup, which I will get to that when we get there, because it will make a little bit more sense. So yeah, let's get started with our soap making. Okay, so I have mixed my oil and lye together and I've gotten it to a very light trace. We're going to need time, so we definitely want our batter to remain fluid. So soap at temperatures between 90 and 100. You can go even a little bit lower. You do not want this to get thick. Start with a really light trace because you can stick blend again once we do mix the colors up. So I am pouring what I will need for color A first, which is 11.3 ounces, or 11.43. And I need the same amount for my color C, or my third color. So again, I'm just going to pour 11.3 into this. Now the remaining soap should go into my third middle color, which is going to bridge the gap between, this is going to be my black, this will be my kind of cream white, this is going to be my blackish teal. So I need 17.14 for this, which should be the remainder of my soap. So if I did my math right, this will come out. Okay. So now I need to add my color. You can pre-mix your color in some oil. I'm using micas and activated charcoal, and basically since I have this at a really light trace, I know that I can stick blend them in and I will be fine. So I'm not bothering to pre-mix. I'm just taking about half a teaspoon and about a teaspoon for the larger amount. For the teal, the one that I have more of. And adding that in. And then I will go over and to my stick blender, stick blend those colors in. And then we can start the mixing. Okay, so now that I have my three colors all mixed together, I need to separate them into each segment. So that's where this comes in. So the first color, A, will have 5.7, so that will be the remainder. I'm actually going to pour layer 2 and layer 3 into these cups. And then whatever's left will be layer 1. And then I'm going to kind of repeat that for the third color, or the second and the third color. So I'm following the math that I did on these, on my handout, which you can access. So I'm going to turn the scale on. And so this is, I'm pouring layer 2's color. So I need 3.8 ounces of black and 1.9 of the teal color. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour 3.8 into here, tear the scale out, and add 1.9 into here. Okay, so this is color 2. Or layer 2, shall we say. Now I'm going to do layer 3, which is 1.9 of the black. And 3.8 of the teal. Okay, so now I'm moving into the white. So I'm going to need so this is layer 5 that I'm doing, which needs 3.8 of the teal. Oops, I just went over. Okay. And then 1.9 of this kind of cream. And then layer 6 is going to be 3.8 of the cream. And 1.9 of the teal. Okay, so I haven't added the fragrance, as you noticed, yet. I'm gonna add that in now, mix it, because I don't want this to set up, obviously. I'm using ginger ale from Brambleberry because it is a slow mover, so it will not accelerate my trace. Now you notice how I'm trying to keep the colors all in their order. That way I don't mess it up, because you do want, the layer order is important. We do need to keep that straight. So I'm just adding in the fragrance. I will mix it all, and then we'll start pouring it into the mold. So, or into the pot, which will then go into the mold. So the One Pot Wonder is a pretty straightforward design. You are going to basically pour your colors all into the pot at once, and then once everything's in the pot, you will pour your colors, or pour the whole pot back and forth into your mold. You tilt your mold at an angle, and then you will slowly lower it as you pour. So as we do this, actually don't need the scale anymore. So you can see we have a slight change, like it gets dark, slightly more to the teal. Now we're going to have a darker teal, well, lighter teal, and it'll keep getting lighter until we get to the cream. And basically this is just giving us an even gradient. So our colors, we've done the math to make sure that what we get is even. You don't have to, in theory, you could just eyeball it. But for this, with the results, you really kind of want to do the math. It is important to getting that really cool gradient. So here we have all our colors that we are going to, so what I'm going to do is I want my black to go in first and my white, or I want my black to be the first color in the mold and my white to be the last, which means I'm going to pour the black first. I'm going to start with the reverse color. Whatever color you want on top is the color you should pour into the mold first, because that's what's going to come out last. So I'm going to go ahead, take this and clean my spatula off and pour it into the mold. So the first color I just can dump in. After that, we're going to pour in a specific spot. So with the One Pot Wonder, if you're not familiar with it, you can pour in different spots in the mold or into the pot. So most people either pour from the front or for the side, but you can also do the angles. For this one, I'm gonna pour into the front. I also have an example of one that I did from the side and then one from 90 degrees, and you'll be able to see the difference that you get. Like, you get very different results in your pour, and they're all cool. I like them all, but I think this one might be my favorite. So I am just gently pouring the soap in down the front. I want it to push the white away and not really break through it. So as I said, I'm just pouring and being very gentle about it. And again, I'm working around counterclockwise to pour each of these colors in. My soap is setting up just a little bit because I'm talking too much. So I'll try and work a little bit faster here. It's still very fluid. I'm not that worried. But yeah, you definitely, like I said, you want a fluid soap. If it starts getting thick, you'll not get the same results. You can see, we can barely see the white just around the edges because it's been basically, the colors have pushed out a little bit on top of it, which is not the end of the world, don't worry. But yeah, so this is kind of what we have. So you can kind of see that gradient in the pot. Now I'm going to take the mold and I'm just gonna hold it. You can put something under it. If you have a angler that you can set it on, you can do that. And I'm going to pour back and forth continuously. And you can start to see the other colors coming in and creating this gradient stripe. So I'm lowering this as I go. I'm trying to keep it all along the edge. The fun thing about this is that every single time I pour, even if I do the same colors, I never get quite the same striped pattern result. It's always different. Sometimes slightly different, sometimes more different, sometimes, again, it depends on I'm just gonna pour what's left over the top to create a stripe pattern. Sometimes the thickness can actually change what you get. So I've had soap that's gotten a little too thick, but sometimes it's created some neat results. Again, you said every bar will be different, and every batch will be different. Like, I've never successfully duplicated a pattern. It just never happens. So there you have it. So I will wrap this up, well, insulate it, and then we'll come back tomorrow and cut it and see what the results are. So here's the cut from yesterday's pour. You can see that the swirling is thicker than what the upcoming batch will be. This is because the soap was thicker when I poured it into the mold. There's nothing wrong with this. I still actually really like this pattern, but there's definitely a difference between the swirls that you get based on the thickness of your soap. So here's the first batch I made where it was more fluid, and you can see that you get a more feathery look between the swirls. I like both. I think this one is probably my favorite. I just love those super crisp thin lines. So they just speak to me. But both create really pretty soaps. What I absolutely love about this soap is the gradient between the basically feather swirls. It's just gorgeous and was worth all the effort we went through to make this soap.